Welcome to session 3 of Future Forward Summit. What's new for QuickBooks 2023? I am Gary DeHart, the host of Future Forward Summit, host of Accounting Insiders podcast, and the publisher of Insightful Accountant and Tax Practice News. Our presenters today are William Bill Murphy and Liz Scott. Murph is mostly retired, and I think he wants to probably need to put some highlights around that mostly retired, because he's less than mostly retired, I think. But he is an advanced certified QuickBooks Pro Advisor with over 30 years in consulting experience. He's a 3-time winner of Woodard's NAN Online MVP Award. And in June of 18, Murph was presented with the Lifetime Achievement Award by Insightful Accountant and Scaling New Heights at their 2018 conference. And if you don't know, he writes 60% of what you see on Insightful Accountant. Then Liz Scott, who is also driving the slides there. Liz is an advanced certified pro advisor and a member of the exclusive Intuit Trainer Writer Network. And along with running 2 accounting firms, she's the owner of Liz Scott Consulting, where she takes up and coming apps to new heights. She's the CEO of Accounting Lifeline and the co-host of QB Happy Hour with Liz and Heather, which is a webinar series devoted to building awareness in the accounting community about the latest technology trends and best practices in a fun and relaxed environment. She was named Insightful Accountant's top educator, trainer, writer, pro advisor. What year was that, Liz? I'm thinking maybe 17? No, 3 years ago. 19? You're muted, but so sometime in the past couple of years. So we're lucky to have both of them here. And so today, basically, we're going to be taking a look at and learn how to leverage QuickBooks bookkeeping and accounting to grow your practice, including e-commerce and retail. Discover new QuickBooks features and benefits that can help you optimize your firm, and some tips to make your use of QuickBooks as efficient and as profitable as possible. Before we dive too far, I do need to make sure I cover my housekeeping items. CPE is available. You have to participate in 3 of the poll questions. You have to be on the session or in the session for 50 minutes, 50 minutes. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A panel. Chat is disabled, so you have to put them in the Q&A panel. We will get to those time permitting, and then a link to the recording will be sent to you typically within about 24 hours, but the recording won't be available for about 5 days. And that will be posted to our YouTube channel. I will put a link to the YouTube channel in the chat. And then I will also put a copy of the slide presentation in the chat after Murph and Liz take over, which is about, oh, and also last thing we did, we've enabled the closed captioning. So if anybody does need that, you should find in your, I guess your control panel is what you would call it on Zoom. In the control panel, if you don't see it, click on the 3 dots, and then those 3 dots will allow you to enable closed captioning. So without any more delay, I'm going to turn this over to Murph and Liz. So take it away.
Well, Gary forgot that he was supposed to ask the first polling question. So we do have a polling question, and we want to know what accounting software you use. And by the way, you have to answer 3 polling questions, and we only have 3 polling questions. So we want to know if you use QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online, or some other accounting software. And you've got about 10 or 15 seconds to answer this. And remember, if you're going to get CPE, you must answer, because we only have 3 and you have to answer 3. So Gary's monitoring the time. And as soon as a reasonable number of people have answered, then we'll close the polling question.
Yep, we're going to close that out in about 3 more seconds, and I will share those results. 3, 2, and 1.
Well, 69% of the people are using QBO now, and 31% are using desktop, and nobody is using anything else. Surprise, surprise. Well, okay. So let's move on to the next slide. And, I kind of put this little cartoon in here. I'm sure you can tell which of these sheep is stuck on the ground because the rest of them even look like they are clouds. And I won't say which one is the black sheep of the family. But anyway, Liz, if you'd go ahead and switch slides. And we're going to talk a little about the core features that have been added to the QuickBooks product line for 2023. And so let's start with the Cash Flow Hub. With the 2022 release of QuickBooks Desktop, users were told that the long present feature called the Cash Flow Projector had been eliminated from the product. And while I must admit that the Cash Flow Projector was a complex tool and that many users were not even aware of it or how to use it, even though it was one of the centerpieces of the book that I co-wrote back in 2010, the Cash Flow Projector had many good features. Well, as a replacement of sorts, 2023 QuickBooks Desktop products now include a new Cash Flow Hub. That allows users to see details of their current cash flow standing, their cash flow trends into the future, and also their money in and money out. And now is the perfect time for the release of this tool because cash certainly is king, a saying that certainly could not be truer than in today's businesses with escalating costs, declining profit margins, supply chain complexities, and employee staffing problems. The new Cash Flow Hub enables you to explore, manage, and track your cash flow by adding a wide range of banks and tracking balances from this one location. The tool allows you to easily review your accounts impacting cash flow, and you get to pick the ones you want to include, just like you used to be able to do in Cash Flow Projector. Examine your cash balance trends, track the cash flow performance over a specific period you choose, and manage your money in and money out directly from the Cash Flow Hub. Now, most recently, there have been updates that allow you to include direct connect banks in the all accounts section. While this new tool does not do everything the old Cash Flow Projector did, or even a lot of third-party add-on at extra subscription cost apps can do, I predict that you're going to see a lot of improvements made to the cash flow analysis and projection capabilities that are built into this new tool. And I think at some point in the future, it's going to surpass what the old CFP could ever have hoped to have accomplished. One reason for my projection is the underlying technology supporting this feature. Like many of the newer features in QuickBooks Desktop, they're actually running within an internal browser application within the desktop application itself. And they're accessing cloud-based technology that essentially is identical to the technology that's being used to support QuickBooks Online. And when you can design and configure one technology that can be used in two different settings, both online and within the desktop, that makes a feature extremely viable from a cost development standpoint. So Cash Flow Hub is going to continue to expand capabilities. Cash Flow Hub is available to all 2023 Desktop Plus, Enterprise, and Accountant users in the United States. And Liz, if you would, let's advance to improve bank feeds. Traditional methods are prone to security concerns and connection stability errors, which is why many banks have been moving towards API-based connectivity, the method that QuickBooks Online has been using. New for 2023, QuickBooks Desktop offers the same kind of improved connectivity using this modernized platform to resolve the security and connectivity concerns. The new functionality provides enhanced connectivity to more banks and even more banks in the near future. It significantly stabilizes and dramatically provides more security for bank connectivity. It streamlines downloading through fetching of bank data with improved transaction auto matching. And it provides intelligent bank data streams that will allow for future enhancements in online banking services. It represents the future of where banks are headed and where QuickBooks is headed with them as a part of these changes. You see, customers are demanding more from their financial institutions, their banks, and their credit cards, and they are requiring the information and services that those facilities are providing, and they expect them to be provided through their third-party solutions like QuickBooks. Intuit intends to have connectivity with more than 24,000 banks ultimately available to QuickBooks users via this technology. So while this feature may not yet be totally workable at the moment, it's definitely headed in the right direction. The improved bank connectivity is now available to 2023 Desktop Plus, Enterprise, and Account users within the United States. Liz, let's look at the new way to track vehicle mileage. While QuickBooks Desktop has always had mileage tracking, there's a new way to do it for 2023. Now users can track mileage with an Apple-based iOS mobile app that incorporates the data into their QuickBooks company file. Employees can add business trips using the mobile app and post them for approval on the desktop. With this new way of tracking mileage, the mobile app uses start and stop trip locations to compute the mileage distance. QuickBooks fetches the most current IRS mileage rates to compute the mileage costs. Admin or supervisor users can approve the employee's business trips posted into QuickBooks, and the trips can be tracked to customers, jobs, classes, and items. This is another example of how QuickBooks Desktop is being expanded into the cloud via the desktop mobile app, which links your company file through your Intuit account. With features like sales order fulfillment, mobile pick, pack, and ship, upload vendor bills, and attach documents, all demonstrating the successful integration of cloud and desktop, just how long do you think it'll be before key desktop features go cloud? Users want the freedom of mobility, especially the multiple locations like enterprise users. Therefore, they'll look for crucial inventory features like purchasing, receiving, stock counts, and much more from their mobile devices. The new track vehicle mileage feature demonstrates the freedom to expand desktop into the cloud, and users will make use of this capability. Now let's look at those version 23 product features for enterprise. The first is expiration date tracking, and boy, that's something we've been needing for a long time to make enterprise mid-market functionality. Most sophisticated systems like QuickBooks Enterprise with advanced inventory, have been offering expiration date tracking. And now we have it in Enterprise. It's available in the Platinum, Diamond, and Accountant versions for both the United States and Canada, in addition to serial or lot number tracking. Before this, users had to rely on spreadsheets or third-party apps or try to use custom date fields, none of which did a good job. With this new advanced inventory functionality, QuickBooks Enterprise allows users to add expiration dates to inventory items with serial or lot numbers during the receiving and purchasing processes. You can easily verify expiration dates on sales transactions, and you can view expiration dates on related serial or lot inventory reports. While the feature needs some work, I'm confident it'll continue to be developed over the next few maintenance releases. One example of that is the expiration status report just released in the R3 update to Enterprise 23 this past month. The expiration date tracking feature significantly expands Enterprise serial and lot functionality to help meet the expectations of mid-market users. I don't think it'll be long before you see expiration date capture and verification incorporated into that mobile app either, because everybody is going to want this feature incorporated into sales order fulfillment. Now let's look at intercompany transactions. Until now, businesses with multiple related companies have needed to manually create transactions in multiple QuickBooks company files to record intercompany financial activities. This created significant duplication of work, and in many times it resulted in errors. Duplication of entries between entities compounds the complexity of multifaceted company record keeping. Accountants and bookkeepers struggle to guarantee that the transactions were correctly recorded between entities in order to ensure the accuracy of the primary company's books. The ability to combine the data of multiple QuickBooks companies and get a complete picture of the financial status was difficult at best. It often required third-party software to fully view the financial health and produce a true consolidated set of accounting reports. But now in version 23 of Enterprise Platinum and Diamond, along with Enterprise Accountant in the United States, we have the ability to create relationships between multiple QuickBooks company files and then post intercompany transactions, both bills and checks, between those related companies while simultaneously tracking all of these intercompany transactions. Intuit learned a lot from their experience in designing landed costs for Enterprise a few years back when they initially built it to work just one way. And then different groups of accountants told them, well, they preferred to track them this way. And another group told them, well, we prefer to do it a different way. So when it came to intercompany transactions, the Enterprise team working on this feature provided a significant amount of flexibility in how the accounting aspects of intercompany postings could be configured. That's why you'll be able to add or select both the due to and due from accounts the way you want them to post in both the primary and each secondary company that gets created under this new way of posting intercompany transactions. This outstanding, and I'll say that again, outstanding new enterprise feature has been needed for a long time. And while it still needs some tweaks and enhancements, like the ability to post transactions across truly multiple companies for those businesses with multiple related companies. It can and will ultimately save a great deal of time when those entities share a lot of business expenses. The team working on this feature has already released enhancements. Last month, as a part of R3, the update to version 23, they added the ability to use date range filters in the intercompany dashboard and reports. They added the ability to edit intercompany general journal entries for all fields with the exception of amount and account, and to change the default due to account during the process of approving intercompany transactions. In the long run, I believe almost every user will find that they can make this new feature by the time it's finalized work for every sort of intercompany expense. And now let's look at inventory item categories. You're going to find that I have written a new article about this, and I think it's going to publish maybe on Friday in detail about a lot of the new functionality that's just been added about this. But QuickBooks Desktop has had always a limited number of ways of defining inventory items, name and number and purchase description and sales description and part numbers, as well as barcodes and serial and lot numbers. But there wasn't really truly a way of creating a hierarchy that could be tracked in and of itself. And there wasn't a way to really report on the hierarchy that it allowed you to establish under the name and numbering convention. But for 2023, they created these new item inventory categories. Users can establish even a 4-level subcategory hierarchy. But in order to do it right, you have to be cautious in how you set it up to begin with. The good part about item categories is it allows you to create these categories and they can be separate apart from all the other naming conventions. You can establish those categories as you see fit. Just be sure you do it with some forethought. Assign the categories and subcategories to your inventory items, and then run reports based on those inventory categories and subcategories. It's still a work in progress, and the team that is working on it is interested in hearing from you. So be sure you use the send feedback feature to let them know what you think and what you are expecting. They've already been doing work, and as a part of the R3 release, they incorporated the ability to edit and delete categories. They did add a new actual category dashboard. You can move multiple items now into a category, and you can filter and find and select items by category. They've expanded the number of reports, and I'm not going to go into those because, like I said, I do all of that in this detailed article that I think is actually going to be in the headline on Friday. So just remember, when you get ready to use this, think before you build the categories and hierarchical organization. It's a powerful new tool, but only if you use it smartly, and I'm confident you will. The last thing that I really want to talk about in terms of new features is something that not really even got listed, and that's the addition of purchase orders to the accounts payable workflow. Just know that in addition to the workflow that was set up for bills last year, they did add POs this year. You would have thought that had done the POs first last year. seems like it only makes sense to do PO approval first and then bill approval next. Count on them to do things backwards. But anyway, yeah, you can now approve POs, and it just kind of also makes you wonder when they're going to add that to the mobile app, so you can go out there and approve both POs and bills. Then those managers will never be coming into the office. They'll be doing it all from the mobile app. And they won't need to have hosted QuickBooks anymore because they can do it all from their mobile app. Let's move on over and look at surprising new functionality. This is something that's just been released, and there's two justifications for it. Those people who are leaving desktop, since it's been on subscription, they now have a new option that if you upgrade to 23 release 3, you can essentially for a year have free view only. And they want you to have the confidence of knowing that your data is available. And you can still see your data for a year. And it's especially applicable to those people who are migrating to QBO, so that they didn't have to worry about if they migrated, how could they go back and see their desktop data? And so they made it possible so that they could see their desktop data for a year, as long as their desktop data was on R23. And that kind of takes us then over to the fact that they did offer this new enhanced migration, and they not only have a tool, but a set of resources. And the resource kit, well, one thing they told us is they were going to have monthly updates about all this info. I went looking for info in their resource kit about updates, and unfortunately, I didn't see anything new that was updated in November that wasn't already being shown for November in October. So I don't know whether they're really keeping that up to date or not. But you'll find the migration tool that they offer a version for both desktop versions that are not enterprise, and a version for enterprise from this resource. And for access, we've shown you the link of the various articles throughout here that I've written about all of these subjects. And of course, within those articles, you'll find the various links back to Intuit. And with that said, I think the only other thing I had to report was, you may be aware that under your new QuickBooks ProAdvisor website, or ProAdvisor training page, that you have access to all this new QBO training links. But when you get down to the very bottom and it says QuickBooks desktop training, well, it just takes you back over there to the same old QB desktop training page. So they haven't updated the QuickBooks desktop training page, just added a link to the old QuickBooks desktop training page from the new QuickBooks online training page. And with that said, they are supposedly working on new desktop certifications for 2023. And rumor has it that we're also going to maybe have a new enterprise certification. And that's what I know. And hopefully I'll see some of you at QuickBooks Connect because I'll be there.
Well, there's
Liz?
nobody I would rather learn QuickBooks desktop tips and what's happening other than you, Murph. So it's always a pleasure to learn from you.
And our good friend Esther, I think, is teaching all about QuickBooks Enterprise. So maybe she'll have some new info for us.
Esther, she's a phenomenal trainer. So I had a pleasure of being able to join Esther this morning in the kickoff to the webinar, VCon. So that was a nice treat. And you had joined us there too and was commenting in chat. So always great questions. And I missed the news release that you were going to be at QuickBooks Connect. So that makes my heart very happy to be able to see you in person and to be with you at QuickBooks Connect next week.
I'm sure we will have the opportunity of seeing each other. I think there's an event that they're having for some of us, so I'm sure we'll see each other.
We'll be able to connect. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
All right. I'll turn
Well,
it over and let you finish this out.
okay.
Maybe
So
I've left you enough time.
you've left me plenty of time. So what we did is we divided up our time into QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online releases. So QuickBooks Online is where I will pick up and walk you through some of the updates. There's been quite a bit that's happened inside of QuickBooks Online throughout the year. I'm really just going to focus on some of the newest things that have really caught my attention. And just, the latest things that maybe you haven't had a chance to play with or not. But, one of the differences with QuickBooks Online is that releases happen all the time. So constantly, if there's a new feature, well, then that new feature is rolled out and we all see it, or sometimes it's in beta testing or it's released versus in realms. And so not everybody gets the same update at the same time. So that way they can get feedback. So feedback is definitely super critical whenever we're thinking about QuickBooks Online features. And with that in mind, I'm going to share one release that happened this year that a lot of us had a bunch of feedback. And that was about the business view versus the accountant view. And for those of you who have experienced this switch in views, you're familiar, but if you are not, let me go ahead and walk you through. There are two different views of the navigation bar over on the far left. I think it was your left. And what that is showing is what are the different ways to navigate around QuickBooks. I think about the accountant view as being a very traditional centers type of navigation. If you think about banking, then you're going to go into that center for banking and you've got your transactions and you've got any type of receipts that are uploaded that are related to banking. So that's, very center based. If we switch over and we think about the new business view, the difference here is really this is truly designed for those end clients who are not thinking about accounting terminology. So whenever we say to them invoicing, sometimes there's that blank between do you mean bills or do you mean invoices? And so there's always this communication breakdown. So that's the perk in the new business view, is that it's geared more towards those end clients. Oftentimes I do go ahead and show my clients both. That way they're able to have the decision on which view they want to use. But I can tell you myself, whenever I'm working, I'm going to be in the accountant view. The only thing that I have found about the business view that is hands down super cool and I love it, and I would love for it to be added to the accountant view, is bookmarks. So many of us who are QuickBooks Online users utilize bookmarks. So there's a favorite report, maybe there's a you want to do some fast links to printing or deposits inside of QuickBooks Online itself, now you can create bookmarks instead of needing to rely on the browser that you're in. So instead of being on one device and having all of your browsers, you can have your browser bookmarks or your QuickBooks Online bookmarks directly inside of QuickBooks. So that's a really cool, nice feature that whenever I show that one to in clients, they do get excited about that one. Books review. So Books review has continued to go under some renovations. And the cool thing about Books review is that it is designed to help you now set up a client's file and then also wrap up. So those are the two new pieces that have been added through this year. And if we think about the setup, where I'm utilizing this the most is if I've got a client who has really bad beginning balances. Instead of needing to make a bunch of journal entries, you can actually come over here into the setup area and you can jump off with some beginning balances. And yes, you still have control as to what account those are posted to. So if you look right above that green box that says beginning balance statement, if you look above that, it says adjusting equity account. So you're able to post to whatever account it is that is most appropriate. I think that's going to save a lot of time whenever we're looking at beginning balances and we're trying to do journal entries and back and forth. And instead of needing to calculate ourselves, really, we just put in that dollar amount of what that maybe that ending December statement is. And then now we've got a good January starting point. So that's a huge area inside of the setup of the Books review. A couple of other cool things that they've added is making sure that you've got the correct account type. The other thing that I would add in here too is that you can actually change vendors inside of the transaction review. So maybe once you've moved through the setup and you're over into transaction review, one of the cool features inside of there is, I don't know that everybody knows that you can actually bulk change names of vendors. So that's super handy whenever you're thinking about 1099 prep. It's a useful piece. And then wrap up is going to take you all the way through the year-end close. So each one of these tabs is designed to help you close the books for a month end, a year end, or any other type of period end, and make sure that you're able to have this internal checklist inside of QuickBooks as to what's the next steps for working on your client's books, especially right now at year end. Gary, we have a poll, and would you mind launching that poll for us? Thank you. So the polling question, which version of QuickBooks Online do you currently use? So earlier, whenever Murph was getting started, you know, all of the little sheeps in the clouds, this is asking all of us that are up there in the cloud, which version of QuickBooks are we using? And then Gary will count us down on this poll. So as soon as we have enough of the submissions in, and he will then share results with us.
Yeah, we'll hold it open for about 5 more seconds. So if you need the CPE, make sure you participate, because like Murph said, we only have 3 polls total. So we're going to go ahead and close this out in 3, 2, and 1. Thanks.
All right, so most everybody is in, just like me, inside of QuickBooks Online Plus. You know, I think that has been my favorite subscription level. Although I do have to say QuickBooks Online Advanced, we knew that it was going to get new functionality. So I see that there's a pretty good size of our percentage of people here that are inside of QuickBooks Online Advanced, which the features are definitely growing. So I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite features whenever I'm using QuickBooks Online Advanced. And you know, the thing that keeps happening is all of these rollouts. Custom reports, if you are one of those that said yes, that you're a QuickBooks Online Advanced user, then I would imagine custom reports is a place that you are just going wild like I am. I am going to be sharing a article release that will be inside of Insightful Accountants. That's going to be, how am I using custom reports in order to prep for 1099s? So there is a template that you can use, or you can start from scratch. And I'm using that template inside of custom reports to then go and find all of the vendors. I can filter into what accounts do I want to have populated onto my new custom report. And then I can actually group those, that data either by account or by vendor is nice trick. And then I can see all of the amounts. So based on that information, the next phase is I can actually add some columns to the information to say, inside of QuickBooks Online, is this vendor already captured as a 1099 vendor? And so that's actually a way to be able to filter that data. And so you can see if all of your 1099 vendors have already been marked as 1099 vendors. Because the reason that this is super important is if you just go and pull a 1099 report inside of QuickBooks, that detail report is not going to give you the same level of information as if you go over and you create this custom report that's going to be able to pull in the accounts. So, one of the things that I do every year is I go through my clients' files and I look account by account, and then I make sure that there's not some 1099 vendors that have been buried maybe over inside of repairs. That's a common place for 1099 vendors to be stored. So it's a super cool custom report that I'll be sharing what I'm doing for my clients in order to get ready for year end. The other thing that you can do here too is you can also create pivot tables. So once you have these custom reports that are created, you can use those to then create these pivot tables. And what I'm doing with those pivot tables inside of the scenario that I was sharing with vendors is taking that pivot table and downloading it to Excel, and then I'm sending it over to my clients so that way they can view that information. And it's already summarized by vendor name and dollar amount. And if need be, I could even add in, did we get the right category? So super cool having the pivot table ability inside of QuickBooks Online Advanced with the custom reports. Another reporting functionality that I think is super cool is the spreadsheet sync. So this one takes a little bit of time to set up. When you are working inside of Excel, one of the options is to sync that data with QuickBooks or vice versa. So you're able to take the company information, pull it down into a Excel workbook, and then use the data there to amend, and then you can see you can refresh it. But a lot of people who utilize Excel, this is going to be a huge win for being able to have this spreadsheet sync and update data as needed. Gary, it looks like we have one more poll. We're getting ready to talk about e-commerce. So our question here is, do you serve e-commerce clients? Yes or no? And then Gary, if you want to make sure that we've got enough people who are responding to the poll before we close it out.
Absolutely. We'll close it out in about 5 more seconds. Again, last reminder, last poll, CPE, you need to participate. Closing out now. Thanks.
All right, so it's about 50-50 split. So that's really interesting. I think that, it used to be most people shied away from e-commerce. So seeing that the majority of people here, half of the people here are starting to serve e-commerce clients, I don't think is a huge surprise. I think that we definitely have a virtual world happening. And so clients want to take advantage of it. I even have some clients who had considered retiring and closing the doors, and then they decided to move over into e-commerce, and they've continued to operate and kind of have this semi-retire life happening right now because of being able to use e-commerce. With QuickBooks Online, there has been several different releases and updates for commerce accounting. If you are somebody who's a little confused as to what's happening, let me kind of break down what you're seeing and what's happened throughout the year. So there was a beta test. There was a beginning group of people that were chosen for QuickBooks Commerce, and the intent was to create a commerce channel, and that way everybody could use commerce as a tool that was outside of QuickBooks Online to host inventory, to have transaction sales, and then pull in that data into QuickBooks and it would sync. Based on the product updates and feedback, they have pulled that back for a moment. And instead, where they were seeing a lot of success, they've continued, which is the commerce accounting. And the difference here is that with commerce accounting, it's essentially a dashboard for all of the e-commerce activity. So the channels that you can connect right now to commerce accounting is Shopify, Amazon, and eBay. So those are the three options. And what you're able to do is go into QuickBooks Commerce Accounting, put in your credentials, and then it will pull in the data. The nice thing about using the Commerce Accounting is that it's non-posting. So you're actually able to, in this dashboard area, review the data before it's ever posted. So you have opportunity to go over and see what's happening, use this dashboard without it actually affecting your accounting. And that's exactly what I did with several of my clients that did not have inventory that we needed to manage. Then I was able to use Shopify. Those clients that were already very familiar with, they didn't need to post inventory into QuickBooks because that is not part of the functionality right now. Instead, what we wanted to see was the summary of sales. We wanted to be able to see the payments, and we wanted to be able to track any type of fees and refunds. So what we do is we'll go over into orders, and orders is pulling in all of the orders that has happened inside of the sales channel. And then you're able to review those on an individual basis. You can see what the activity is. Because it's not pulling that data into QuickBooks, you're not having a functionality slowdown. So you're not, going to pull a report and you have all of these transactions that are coming in. That's not the way that it works. Instead, what happens is over in the payments area, the payments are a summary of all of the activity. So if you think about the payments as being the transaction that's going to be posted, prior to the posting, you can come over into the payments area and you can look at what would be that payments total for today. And again, you do need to use the sales channel payment option in order to be able to see the payments. So if you're using Shopify and you're using a third-party solution like Stripe or Authorize.net, then you're not going to be able to see the payments because that data isn't available inside of Shopify. It's available inside of Authorize.net. So with the way that I would recommend using this is if you're somebody who's using Shopify, then make sure that you're using the Shopify payments. So once you've reviewed those orders and the payouts, you can actually go over into the banking center, and in the banking center, your payments that you're seeing here inside of this dashboard are also visible inside of the banking center. And just like what you do with normal bank feeds, you can actually accept those payments, and that's where the actual posting of the summary of data happens. So inside of the bank feeds, you would be able to see the deposit. You would be able to see any fees for associated with that deposit, those sales. And then you would be able to see refunds, and those 4 transaction types would be visible. And that's how data gets posted, and then you're able to pull reports. the thing that's coming, I'll just go ahead and make sure that I share this. The thing that's coming is QuickBooks does want to get back to that e-commerce opportunity to have everything inside of QuickBooks. So that is still coming. It's just being on hold right now. I think it's in product development. So what about payroll? Payroll has been a really fun adventure for me. I've been able to be on the payroll team for several years. So there is new training that's available inside of your Pro Advisor portal. If you go over to training, you're going to be able to see this year's training is live. If you are somebody who wants to become certified in payroll, then I would recommend the journey be making sure that you're proficient in QuickBooks Online payroll, and the product information would be the training that you would want to take here. That's being what's displayed. The other type of training that's available is the payroll specialist. So QuickBooks was asked, what about all of those people who aren't familiar with what a 941 is, but they're bookkeepers and they're responsible for filing or reviewing the books to make sure that they've been filed, but they're not really sure with all the terminology. So I would make sure that you're going through the payroll specialist training as well before you take that payroll exam, because both pieces of information are on there. Product is going to be in part of that exam, as well as payroll specialist training. And there's going to be some people who are in states like myself. Murph and I are lucky to be in Oklahoma, so we don't have to do much public transportation. So we don't have much reason to be as familiar with what some of the thresholds are for employee allowances for transportation back and forth. But states that do have a lot of public transportation, there is a threshold, and the company can have a contribution towards that, either the parking garage, if that's something that they're doing, or that public transportation. There is a limit to how much you can contribute, and then the rest of it is actually considered compensation. So those are the types of questions that will be on that payroll exam. So I recommend that you take both of those two trainings. So another payroll release is early pay. And with early pay, we're seeing this across the board, not just inside of QuickBooks, but a lot of employees are wanting to be able to be paid right away. So one of the options is to be able to say that your employee has worked that day or week and they're ready to receive those funds. They can actually receive them early. You do need to subscribe to it, but then your employees would be able to have access to their payroll paychecks before the actual pay date. I would say, just the cautionary me would say, use this sparingly. Maybe it's a great tool for if you're closing on a house or you have a big something that's coming up, then maybe you would want your early pay. But the rest of the time, I think that people have a hard time enough managing cash flow. So being paid on a daily basis would be a little dangerous for some people. Multi-factor authentication has now happened inside of payroll. So whenever you're adding payroll details, this is now a new functionality that you can have whenever you're setting up an individual employee. So additional security built in. What's happening in the ecosystem? So when I'm thinking about all things QuickBooks related, QuickBooks has really taken this journey to make sure there's kind of this all-inclusive business platform. And whenever I think about that, I'm thinking about QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Payments, QuickBooks Checking, QuickBooks Payroll, QuickBooks Time, all of those, the cash flow, the commerce, all of those are tools that QuickBooks is designing to be all encompassing. So that way you've kind of got a one-stop shop. So that's part of the roadmap that's coming. And, I utilize all of those tools right now. The only one that I'm not taking advantage of is the checking. No particular reason why, But the reason that I do think that it's important to use QuickBooks Payments in a scenario that you've got digital dollars floating around, most people are not counting cash any longer. And so being able to see your cash flow planner that is inside of QuickBooks Online, it's going to have more data available to you if that if the connection inside of your QuickBooks includes QuickBooks Payments. So the more information that the cash flow planner is able to see, the better predictions there are, the better the forecasting models are going to be. So I do recommend QuickBooks Payments. Those who are using QuickBooks Checking, it's a free service that you can subscribe to QuickBooks Checking, which is a bank account. And there's people who are using that very successfully. Envelopes is a very unique feature of QuickBooks Checking. Yeah, I'll go ahead and share this here. And the thing that's unique about the envelopes is you're able to pull those dollars aside and say, maybe you want to reserve those dollars for payroll taxes, or you want to reserve those dollars for the purchase of an asset. So any type of envelope that you might want to save dollars towards, maybe year-end taxes, whatever it is, you can create these virtual envelopes inside of the QuickBooks checking account, and you're able to keep those dollars from being used whenever you're maybe even swiping the debit card. It's going to still have these dollars, these virtual dollars in this envelope, safeguarded against a purchase. With payments, the inclusion of making sure that you've got payments links means that you can share those out. You can get paid on the go. There's quite a bit of QuickBooks Payments updates that have been rolled out in just the last month. So I would say be looking for several articles whenever it comes to QuickBooks Payments. I think there's more to come. I definitely think that there's an opportunity here for a lot of people who are inside of sales channels already. They're doing some type of e-commerce. It would be wonderful to also be able to pull in QuickBooks Payments links and embed that inside of those sales channels. Not even sure if that's coming, but I would love for that to be a feature that's coming. So I keep on giving feedback that that's my request. And then, the other piece is being able to view the deposits. So if I'm inside of QuickBooks Online, I'm actually going to be able to see what's the status of a payment. Is it 3 days out? Is it already deposited? So you're able to see the transaction details a whole lot faster than if you were using a separate processor and you're not able to see the fees as easily. So QuickBooks is going to make the posting entry for you that's going to have the income, and then it's also going to have the fees inside of that reporting. Today has been fun. So lots of QuickBooks updates happening, Murph.
We had one question that I thought really was very interesting. I hadn't even thought of it. Someone said, and I thought you probably could pass this along to one of the QBO development teams next week. An issue they had was when they had people who have multiple QuickBooks companies and have multiple users, and they get updates to QuickBooks, those rolling updates, but not everybody's getting the same update at the same time, and yet they're trying to work in the same file, and they're working with different, in effect, versions because of that. And I never had even thought of that.
That's a unique experience. I wonder what's the details around it, because normally what happens is the QuickBooks file or the realm itself is upgraded or converted, or new release happens, and so everybody gets that update.
I'm thinking it might be because you know, they have different companies, and maybe those companies are in a different realm because they're under different subscriptions. And so then they work in one subscription, and then they go, and it's a version, and then they go over and they work in a different company under a different subscription.
Okay,
And
so it's less.
it looks like two different products.
Yep. I agree with you. I think that, you know, a lot of that happens because there's this constant need to update. And so the updates are rolled out to us continuously. And then, you know, there's part of what's happening is they're waiting for feedback. Is it something that we're all enjoying? Is there feedback that they need to tweak it before it's rolled out to everybody? So I think that's the reasoning for it.
Here's Leslie Simmons saying, I have to deal with multiple versions for different staff on a regular basis. And Nancy Diamato said, that's exactly when you have multiple QBO companies and it's frustrating. So, you know, yeah.
I hear you. Yeah, I agree. I can definitely see the struggle of that. You know, the whenever I was working with the client live, that's whenever I saw Business View and I was like, what is this? So, you know, it's one of those that it's hard to stay in the know all the time with what's happening, because there's just so much that happens sometimes silently that we don't always get a big release update.
Anyway, well, I think we're just about, maybe we are overtime. Gary, are you there?
I am here. That's perfect timing. So Murph and Liz, thank you. And thanks for everyone who took an hour out of their day to join us. Thanks for a lot of great questions. Thanks for that participation. And again, the CPE certificate will be emailed to those who qualify over, again, you'll probably get it tonight, but we like to say about 24 hours. I do have a couple of notes from people who may have missed a question. If you've communicated with us, we can use that to show that you were here. So no worries if you checked off the other two, and then a couple of communications here at the end, we can leverage that to show your participation. So thank you all. And again, just a reminder, be on the lookout the next week or so for the opening of the nominations for 2023 Top 100 Pro Advisor Awards Program. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.